meteorologist Casey Cloud coming on the air right now on this Friday afternoon, tracking a flash flood warning for areas of Putnam County there on Interlachen. Some really serious rainfall amounts have happened there in a short period of time. Some of the heaviest downpours, after these warnings get issued, sometimes the accidents start to break up because eventually the atmosphere just can't support producing that much rainfall in such a short period of time. But I'll go ahead and go on over here toward a 1 hour rainfall estimates, and we've seen some of these gray areas closer to 4 inches there in an hour around Interlachen, and storm total here will show that some areas have gotten closer to 6. And we're still getting moderate rainfall in that area right now. So that's adding, insult to injury there around Interlachen. This warning got issued about 15 minutes ago or so by the Weather Service in Jacksonville. It goes until 6:45. They may drop it early. We'll see. This is not an area where you generally have flash flood warnings. I mean, it's like, somewhere we're in Bradford County. It's like having one of these in Bradford. You have to have a lot of rain here in a very short period of time to get something like this, and that's exactly what has happened. So we could have some of these areas having some flooding concern. To know one of the rain gauges said about 2 inches, but most of these other areas right into our town they're picking up even more, as there's the indication that some areas here, will definitely end up with over a half foot of rainfall here around Interlachen, as we're adding to that, maybe not quite as rapidly as we were, but Interlachen, that community, as well as Manville, under this until 6:45. Again, I don't know if it'll last that long. It's just sometimes these have a tendency, once your patterns recognize that it's a problem here, and they issue the warning, then you start to see, we've seen this a lot here, quite honestly, with these flash flood warnings lately. It's just, you can tell it's becoming a problem, but then it's reaching the atmosphere's capacity for flooding potential as you start to get just so much of this. I'm going to loop this around, though. You're able to see this is 12 o'clock, 12:30, 1 o'clock there, and as you get closer, that's about 2 o'clock. It's been a heavy downpour there in Interlachen for almost 2 hours, and it's starting to break up, and right when it was starting to break up there, really, or, close to that, you see that green box pop up, but that's very unusual here to get that much training and that rain right around Interlachen there in toward Putnam County. That's an area, again, that you wouldn't expect to flood. It's like, a lot of places around here, it takes a lot to have flash flooding. Quite honestly, I mean, some areas not so much. The urban areas, we generally come on for like Duval and the like. You have all that concrete, but this is on State Road 20 in Interlachen. This is not an area that has. I mean, I'd have to look back. I bet the numbers on flash flood warnings for Interlachen are probably pretty low. And normally it probably has been a tropical system, not a tropical system or anything. Don't get me wrong. But my point is, this is very, this loop here is fascinating, quite honestly. Because to have that happen, they're not right at the coast or anything. We've seen some accidents coming from the east today, but this is, something that, they haven't probably seen in a long time there in Interlachen. I mean, I don't have them right in front of me, but I bet if you once we see the rain gauge amounts and the like, this is probably one of those things that, it doesn't exactly mean what it sounds like here. But, we had this up in toward Georgia the other day, around Lee County, Georgia, I believe, but sometimes you have like a once in 100-year flood or something, and based on these rainfall rates, that's probably, even if technically it'll, probably be able to repeat more than that. It's just, this is something that you don't really see very often in Interlachen at all. I mean, it took a while for that green box to pop up because, again, you're not expecting that area to really flood, but eventually if you get a half foot of rain here, give or take, in this sort of period of time, that's a problem, obviously. I'm going to check some other rain gauges. I know the one they poured in there wasn't that impressive, but let me just check some more rain gauges here. I know turn around, don't drown. So important. I mean, roads that are probably never covered in water are covered in water there on Interlachen this afternoon. I would be surprised if they weren't. Let me see if I can find some actual rain gauges. I'm pretty sure the radar's estimating this here pretty accurately. I mean, a half foot of rain or so on Interlachen, within an hour or two. That's kind of reminiscent. We had a couple years ago when we had the middle school flood here in Bradford County. A very, they didn't issue a flash flood for that because, again, maybe it wasn't even quite as much, as what we had here down Interlachen. It's not, something you expect in a rural area. But I'll have to see some reports. This is some of the more impressive I've seen in a while here in north central northeast Florida. I know we had in South Georgia some the other day, and it was kind of under the radar a little bit, but to have this around Interlachen is surprising here, quite honestly, as we're tracking things. So again, we're just trying to give you guys the latest here on what's going on we're trying to keep you informed and checking some rain gauges. I saw one. I think it has to be underdoing it because it only said a couple inches. Let me see if I can find some other gauges because I know, what I'm seeing on radar, unless something's really wrong with the radar estimates, and they wouldn't even see this warning if they thought that either. I mean, we've seen some really impressive amounts there on Interlachen over the last little bit based on the radar. Again, I'm a little confused by why it's even so little. I mean, it must just be the hyper-local level on this. I'm going to go to some other weather stations I know about. So some of them are kind of north of town, though. It doesn't help. Because I think it happened more into town. They only sent an inch or so. Let me see, inch or two. Yeah. Well, one sent 2.8 inches, but I know we're right here. It's just dark. We got a quick 0.8 of an inch. That's not overwhelming, but still noteworthy. I mean, don't get me wrong. Still noteworthy here as we're looking at Bradford County. I'll go ahead and zoom out a little bit. I mean, that's over with now. I mean, but you see the amounts. I mean, this spot right in here, right, northwest side of town, I don't have really any gauges. Unfortunately, I wish we had some numbers because I gotta, expect them to be, pretty astronomical here. I mean, the warning's pretty small, really, as we're tracking things here this afternoon. But again, tracking the situation very carefully. Obviously, as we're on the air with you guys, just trying to keep you informed. Let me go ahead and go through some stuff here. Again, this is rainfall estimates on this map if you're wondering what that gray area is. Again, you don't see this very often there on Interlachen at all. I mean, I could probably go back on there on some different things. The Iowa Environmental Mesonet keep track of the whole country in terms of all the different warnings over the years. And that's not an area you get flash flood warnings ever, really. Like a small polygon like this, I don't know. I mean, I don't recall one. I'm sure we've had some stuff in tropical systems, or of course, probably some of the big polygons we had, including this area. This is, just a very hyper-local thing, but right here on Interlachen in Putnam County this afternoon, definitely having some concern. I know if you have any rainfall amounts, confirmed ones, let me know, because that's very impressive there. We're always watching things, always tracking things here in the Weather Center for our 62 counties. Again, you rarely see that. I know it's breaking up now, which is great news. Still enough rain that could still, it could still be a problem. I mean, 1 hour, 4 inches right in that spot there where I put the cursor. And on this map, this is storm total. This one close to 6 inches, rain here in the last couple hours. So, again, where this so 2 inches, it's only showing, about 3.5. So there may be a little bit of overestimation here, but even if there is, that's still 4 or 5 inches in a short period of time there in that spot. I'm pretty confident. Up toward Bradford County, it's about an inch. And we got 0.83, and this actually it says a little over an inch here. So maybe overestimating a little bit, but not a whole bunch. I mean, go from the Valdosta Moody radar, it's too far away to get a good gauge on it, but it's still in a few inches there in spots. Again, continuing to track things here very carefully. Let me see if there's any power outages here in some of our backyards here this afternoon. As we're continuing to track things, continuing to monitor them. Putnam County, 16 customers in the dark right now there, so not too big of a deal in terms of that. And up toward Chatham County around Savannah, there's a flash flood warning as well. So again, just trying to give you guys the latest here on what's going on. We're still live with you. I'm just checking some things. See some lightning still in that vicinity. And you just don't see that very often. That's, impressive to say the least. That's not an area that we really ever have that, so. Gonna continue to check things here. Just going through some stuff. It's all about protecting you, your friends, your family. Seeing what I can try to figure out here. Again, you don't get that very often around there. Let me go ahead and check some more information. I'm just going through some things here. I'm just trying to get a gauge on the situation. And we have foot advisory there, and we had the flash flood warning. That's the 20th flash flood warning in a year I see by the Jacksonville office, it looks like. And we had that one for Gilchrist not too long ago, but it, by the time they see that, it was kind of already moving out of that area. It's more rural than this. Interlachen. I'm just seeing if any of the others this year have even included Putnam. We had that slew of Marion earlier on this year, not too long ago, in the morning hours. I don't think we've had any others for Putnam this year, so that's, the rarity in and of it itself. We'll check last year here. Just going through the list live on the air here. So it's possible I can miss something, but a lot of these like Darn Debbie and the like. Looks like we did have a Putnam flash flood warning in October last year. A couple of them. A few. But let me see where they were. Well, that was because of the tropics. And that was because of Milton, wasn't it? Okay, so, yeah, this is what it's odd about it is that this is all during Milton last year. So that we had a few flash flood warnings down there. So, again, this is something that you don't really get that often outside of a landfall and tropical system. So, again, as we're tracking things, that kind of goes to my point here. As we're watching things that are in Interlachen, I mean, the rain is slacking off pretty good. There's a little bit of that red trying to creep back in there that might move over the area that's picked up the most rain. As we're tracking things here. Again, this is a small box, but, it's been noteworthy, with this rainfall coming on down here. You see that 1 hour, that's on 3-4 inches there, 3-4 inches in here. And storm total, so is right in here. This is close to a half foot with some more rain coming down. Some areas getting about a half foot of rain according to the radar. Even if it's overestimated, that's still 5 inches, something like that. Which, within an hour or two. We saw here in Bradford County a couple years ago. It was an aerial flood warning. I jumped on for it. We really never jumped. That might be about the only time I've ever really jumped in just for a flood warning, not a flash flood warning. But, it was becoming obvious we were having a problem here in North Bradford County with all that heavy rainfall coming down, and we ended up, seeing the flooding in the middle school and the like. So I gotta wonder if there's some flooding down there, back to school. I think it's Monday where they go back to school in Putnam. It's Tuesday in Bradford and the like. But most of our schools around here on Monday in our Jacksonville area, Florida counties, give or take. There's some that are different, but I believe Putnam's on Monday, so hopefully we don't have any problems there. I mean, it's a pretty small town overall, but hopefully everything's draining all right. It's not a guarantee we had big flooding problems, but that's kind of concerning. As that is over some homes in neighborhoods here. I gotta wonder what kind of reports we're gonna get out of that area, to be quite honest, as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here. I know it's not our area, but let me just go to the north real quick, because there is a flash flood warning now around the Savannah metro. Some areas there. I know, expect that a little more in those areas with more population, but localized flooding due to heavy rain there. Manhole covers were removed due to storm water, and a dozen locations flooding there around Savannah. Never great to hear that at all. But as we get local, it may take a little while for some of these reports to trickle out of Interlachen. Again, this is 2 inches on the rain gauge. Again, in some of these spots, they've been adding to that. Don't get me wrong, but some of these areas over here, northwest side of town, where the problem would be in toward Putnam County. So, at this point, I don't know if there's that much more I can add, because it's not like we have traffic cameras there or anything in Putnam. I wish we did, but we don't have anything else I can really add here. At this point, we have, other accident doesn't look all that crazy. I mean, Levy County, quite a bit of lightning down there, a little bit of wind enhancement as we're looking there, Gulf Hammock, Otter Creek area, north of Otter Creek there, south of Chiefland. See some scattered acts in northern Bradford, western Duval, western Nassau, and the like, but nothing just completely overwhelming here as we're looking at things, as we're tracking things. So, that's good news, obviously, as we're monitoring the situation, as we give you guys the latest updates on what's happening. We're just gonna, keep watching things. Again, around Putnam, it's not near as heavy as it was, but it's still coming down at times, and that can, aggravate the problem. Our rain rate has dropped a little, as you saw this color drop off just a bit in spots, but storm total, obviously, it's just going to keep going up here. So that's the issue there around Putnam County. I'll see if there's any reports. I'm going to check some other sources, because, if that was in Palaco, they definitely have problems because of the density there with the roads, and, just the concrete there and the like, as we're looking, as we're tracking things here, as I'm giving you guys the very latest. But just if there's anything else I can find. I don't really see anything right off. I mean, there very well may be something, but just tracking that area in Putnam County is concerning for sure with that rain we've seen. I mean, it's slacking off a good bit now, which should help. But I mean, to get that much rain there in a pretty short period of time can cause big problems, It wasn't just out in the woods completely. This was over, parts of a town here. And it was up to see how the drainage was. Probably the most rain they've gotten in this sort of a period of time, just based on the alerts. Unless I'm forgetting something, we've had so many big weather events lately. Basically, this is a localized event. Probably the most rain they've had since Milton down there, though. And it's even shorter period of time than that. But most rain in an event probably since Hurricane Milton down there toward that part of Putnam County. So that's gonna do it for now. We're gonna keep tabs on it. The warning still goes to 6:45, but there's only so much we can say about a flash flood warning here as we're tracking things. You see a little bit of breezy conditions around. I know we didn't have an update yesterday. We'll have our next formal update late Tuesday, early Wednesday, but breaking in as needed. It's going to stay pretty wet around. I'll go ahead and show you the forecast modeling here real quick. Let me do that. So I'm going to get our other source ready for that here real quick. We'll try to pull up the forecast. Actually, let me do two things. First off, before I put all that on, let me see that there's a tornado risk up north tonight. We had some tornado warnings way in the middle of the night in North Dakota last night. Quite a few of them way late in the night there. And tonight, as we look nationally, we do have a tornado risk in parts of Minnesota here. As you look northwest to Minneapolis, so there's a slight risk for tornadoes. Could get a tornado watch there. Bigger risk, for some of the other hazards, your hail risk, your wind risk. That gets even out a little bit further. So that's the storyline there. And then as I go ahead and show you, let me go ahead and pull up the model guidance. Let's see, 12Z, because that's going to go the longest. So let me go to see what it was trying to show for now, see how good of a job it was doing. And I mean, it's never going to be perfect in these situations. You see, it didn't really have the right spots highlighted, but you see it's trying to show moisture some to the evening. And then as we get into toward that Saturday, maybe more stuff coming in off the Atlantic. We shall see. And it kind of fades for a bit. And then this is sunrise tomorrow. And as you get here later on, you see some more accidents. If it's moving slow, there's going to be some big rainfall totals on a few spots. And a lot of rain, in terms of spatial coverage. But some areas, won't probably end up getting too much. I know that seems kind of weird. But, some areas, we'll get a whole bunch. A lot of areas will get some, some areas, kind of miss out still. So it's not like a squall line. It's just the way this is setting up. Sometimes this can happen. I guess all this moisture around, and this moves into early Sunday, and still see some moisture at least around our coverage, circle there on the edges. But as we go ahead and keep you up to date here, we're just trying to give you guys the very latest on what's going on. That pretty much kind of summed it all up for the time being, though. You see here that throwing back on our current temperatures. I mean, areas in the 80s, a lot of spots. Some of that cloud cover around 90 though in Cross City. We're at 87 degrees to start, and even after getting an inch of rain, so almost an inch, and the heat, it feels like over 100 because of all that humidity in the air. I mean, we're at 87 or so. We got about 0.8 of an inch. So, definitely warming back up with the sun out for sure. As we're looking at things, as we're tracking things here, the lighter skies, I'll show you here on our outdoor camera view. You can see that there live. As I go ahead and switch back over here toward this other view, our Doppler perspective, you see some accent in central Florida with some convection. Whenever thunder roars, you want to go indoors, obviously. Try your best with that. Again, now here right now, earlier on, that 1 o'clock hour was pouring. Now some of that sun coming out is warming things back up. It's that up and down weather pattern, making things kind of humid and sticky out there probably. But stay tuned, stay safe. I'll be back here, as is warranted here in the days ahead. Flash flood warning continues for portions of Putnam County till 6:45. Remember, if you encounter flooded roads, wherever you are in our area, if you get into them, even just flood advisories, could have them. Just remember, turn around, don't drown. Again, stay safe.